All right, everyone, we will start the March 9th, 2026 Finance Committee meeting. Today we will cover the Community Preservation Act and then Article 31.
Yeah, I do.
Is everyone all set over there?
That's okay.
Peggy, Joss, you all set?
Yeah.
All right, we will start with introductions of the Community Preservation Act Committee, and I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
All right, thank you. Here's my first slide. Here it is. Okay.
I'll change it to the better format after you start talking.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so as you can see on the slide behind that box, I'm Sue Doctorow, and I'm one of the chairs of the CPAC, and Dave Swanson sends his apologies. He's the other co-chair. And Christine Bongiorno is going to say a couple words about the fact that this is the 10th anniversary of the CPA in Arlington.
Thank you. As Sue mentioned, I'm Christine Bongiorno. I'm the Deputy Town Manager of Operations, and thank you so much for this opportunity. As many of you may know, many of you may have worked on the campaign to get CPA in place. Voters of Arlington voted to approve CPA back in 2014, and the first grants were given out in 2016, so in town meeting 2016. So we're celebrating this year our 10th year of projects. So if you have here just a summary, just a one-page summary of our 10-year snapshot. As you can see, we've the town has given out through the CPA committee over $23 million in grants to various projects. And as you may know, the areas that CPA cover are affordable housing, historic preservation, and open space and recreation. So I can certainly get into a lot more detail about all of the projects, but many of you walk by, some may live in or visit frequently some of the projects that are listed. Every project is listed on the back here. The impact has been quite significant, and we're taking the opportunity this year. We're going to have a birthday cake at town meeting the night we present. Should have brought some birthday cake tonight for you, but we will save that for town meeting. But we're really excited to be able to celebrate the work of the committee and the work of the applicants that have put forward amazing projects. Okay, we'll pivot to our next fiscal year.
Okay, so thank you. So these are our members. Next slide, please. Sorry, I'm switching it anyway.
Speak a little louder, please. Sue.
Yes, sorry.
I'll catch up to you. I'm sorry.
Well, you all have the presentation, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So the second slide shows the members of the CPA committee and, of course, the town staff members who help us enormously. And I just wanted to mention that two of our members are leaving this year. Clarissa Rowe, who is a longtime advocate and champion for the CPA, and Alexandra Franzosa, who moved to Bedford and hopefully is going to join the CPA committee there. As Christine indicated, we fund projects in 3 different categories: the community housing, open space and recreation, and historic preservation. And each year we're required to allocate 10% to each of those categories. And we can also allocate up to 5% for our administrative costs, which we generally ask for much less than that. And then the remaining 65% is flexible. We can do anything with it within the CPA categories. So in the community housing, the first project that we recommend for funding is Cusack Terrace right next door. This is a fire alarm and sprinkler upgrade, and basically they want to bring their very old fire alarm system up to code. And also, there's some areas that don't even have sprinklers, so they want to provide sprinklers to all the residents, that kind of protection. So this is obviously a very important project for the Arlington Housing Authority. The housing, next slide, please. The Housing Corporation of Arlington requests $20,000 for their homelessness prevention program. And this is basically giving $2,500 grants to people in housing crisis. So they might be about to be evicted, so they give this modest amount of funding to help them and to save their housing, and they also provide social services. This is on the slide really just some of the testimonials of people that have been helped by this. Next slide, please. MS Court is an exciting HCA project. They acquired 2 apartment buildings on Mass Ave and a 2-family on Newman Way. And they're proposing 2 new buildings, and it's going to be a campus with a total of 97 fully affordable housing apartments. So they asked us for $500,000, and the main purpose is, this is of course a very expensive project like their other large projects, but they can demonstrate local match with this funding from our CPA program. Next slide, please. Now we're moving to the open space and rec category. Crosby Courts, they're tennis courts with some pickleball lines and a basketball court, badly in need of rehabilitation. And they believe, the Park and Rec Commission believes they can't be repaired. So this is a project to rebuild the courts. And in this case, we are giving them half of what they requested, mainly because our budget is limited. And they asked for 1.3 million. They said they could use the half and modify the project and look for cost saving. So that's what we're giving them. We're recommending the town meeting give them. The next open space rec project is the Veterans Memorial Park renovation. And you know the Veterans Park at Broadway in Arlington Center? This is a really beautiful plan to renovate that park, to make it ADA accessible, a good community meeting place, to improve the memorial wall and to really improve this tribute to Arlington's veterans. And they've asked for $300,000. They've raised significant other funds already, and they're seeking additional funds. It's, I think it's approximately a $2 million project. Next slide, please. This is Cook's Hollow. It's right near here along Millbrook. It's a beautiful little kind of tranquil spot. Enjoyed by a lot of the residents of Cusack Terrace, for example. So this is a project that is to really redesign this area, make it more resistant to climate change, minimize flooding damage, improve the ambiance and the walkability. Again, this is a project that's $1.4 million. It's actually shovel ready. But we did not have enough money to fund $1.4 million. So they're using the funding they requested from us, and this is the Department of Planning and Community Development, again, to demonstrate local match and to seek funding from a state program that has been interested but wanted a more advanced project. So hopefully they'll be able to fund that entire project. Next, please. Okay. Now we're in the historic preservation category. And I think you're well aware from past CPA years that Town Hall is badly in need of envelope restoration. And this funding is for phase 3 of the project, out of 4 phases. So we funded the first 2 phases, and now this is to really hire a designer and really project what the construction project will be, all the details. And Christine can answer questions about that much better than me. But we're recommending $900,000 for funding, and I believe that $100,000 has been requested from capital planning. And last slide here, last project. This is the Arlington Historical Society, and they have 19,000 items. We went and visited the site, like historic artifacts, documents, photographs, and they're in the process of digitizing it. And they never asked us for funding for the digitization so far, but they've digitized 60%. So what they requested from us is $47,500 to complete the remaining 40%. And then once it's digitized, and already some of these are available online, you can search for the artifact and contact them for more information, so people all over the world can find these artifacts. So last slide. So what we're proposing is $3.05,500,000 for these projects. We have, in addition to the CPA revenues, approximately $922,000 in reserve. So this is using less than half of our reserves, leaving approximately, what, 500? Yeah. Approximately 500,000 in reserve. So any questions?
Hey, questions, Chuck?
Thank you. So on the Crosby Street courts, the rec department's an enterprise fund, correct?
Not for this.
Not for this, so their surplus gonna be applied to the Crosby courts?
I don't know, and I don't know if
They have
a
$1 million.
surplus.
They have 1.2 million in balance right now.
Oh, okay,
And they've had a
interesting.
surplus the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, that isn't the CPA's decision on,
Yeah.
and it's possible that that's what they'll tap into to support the remaining expenses. This was a $1.3 million project, and they were funded at $750, so
Yeah,
that will be up to their commission to decide.
Right. You see the point though, they have money that they could apply to this.
good, I'm glad to hear it. I
can send you the
didn't know about
details,
that.
but they have
Yeah.
a lot of money,
Mhm.
and I know you gotta give them 10%, but,
Well, we don't have to give them 10%, just the whole category.
the category, all right,
Yeah.
sure.
And, the Cook's Hollow, we could
I
only
agree.
give
For
10%.
housing, I
Yeah,
agree, absolutely.
thank you, that's a good
Because
thing.
I don't think these other people have surpluses, $1 million surplus.
Yeah.
Right, so I would challenge that,
Well, basically, I guess one of our members said something about a champagne taste on a beer budget, and the kind of concrete they're using isn't in any of the other courts, and it's state of the art, and it's very durable but very expensive.
Yeah.
So, we said if you can use half, we can.
Yeah.
The other point is, if they can't make it work, any of these people, if they can't make it work, they don't spend the CPA funds, so they stay in our reserve. So
Okay,
They,
yeah, my point's different, I would
Yeah.
say.
No,
that
I
they
know,
have- They
I
have some
know.
money they could apply to that,
Yeah.
almost the whole thing.
that's for them to decide, they
Yeah.
need to, yeah, thank you.
Rebecca, and then Chuck, and then Michael.
Thank you. I had a question about the Veterans Memorial Park. That maintains the current footprint of the park, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, at some point there was some discussion about rerouting traffic in park, like changing the layout of the parking lot. Is that not gonna happen?
Probably not in our lifetime.
Okay,
I think that is off the table,
Oh.
at least for the next.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't gonna renovate the park and then move the parking spaces in. That seems great. Thank you.
Charlotte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, two questions. On the veterans project, what's the total cost of the project and how much of it is actually funded?
They, this is from the application and it said approximately 2,063,376. And I added up their prior awards and I got 658,000 and 53,000 in donations.
So they, I wanna say they have maybe 1.7 so far, and they're waiting for 2 earmarks from, or 1 earmark from the state. They're going back to Stantec, who is the designer, to do adults or deduct alternates in the bid package so that they can get the project started July 1. So
So
perhaps they phase different, they
they have
take
1.7 million now, including the CPA?
Correct, yes. And don't hold me to that number, I'm estimating,
And my number's just from the application, which is older, like you probably have more
Right.
recent info.
The second question, I'm glad to see that we're digitizing the Arlington Historical Society. This actually is really, Christine, a question for you. Are we digitizing all the material that's in the basement of the town hall?
there were applications in the past, they were partially funded by CPA. I think that the clerk will be going back for additional funding in the future. Hopefully their request is funded and they can continue their project. But they have, they've been doing small bits every year.
Thank you.
Michael.
Explain to me your viewpoint on holding in reserve a fairly significant amount of the money that you have at your disposal this year.
Sure.
So I'm just the staff liaison. I don't get to take a vote. I think that the committee looked at all the projects and they could have given every penny out, allocated every penny, but I think that there's always the chance that there's an emergency application, there's always a chance that there's a major application in the future. And I think using half the reserve was, from the deliberation I saw, was what the committee felt was.
What's the window for putting in one of those emergency applications?
There has not yet been one, but I think that if something popped up in the middle of the year and a request came
Would it
in,
require a town meeting vote to ratify?
it would, but obviously we would look at the mechanics of that. There hasn't been an emergency application in the past, but sometimes
past 10
there
years?
There was one, there was,
a housing.
it was the electrical boxes in one of the Arlington
Housing
housing.
authority.
After the fire
Fire.
that happened, they had, what is it, Pacific something, those old boxes that are dangerous.
Okay, so that's a speculative situation and rather low likelihood based on the past. It sounds to me like the Veterans Memorial Project is close to being fully funded. And the amount of money that you're holding back in reserve is more than enough to finish it. Am I incorrect?
I mean, you're not incorrect, they asked for 300,000. So,
Can that be amended tonight?
be amended, I believe, by the
committee. And I will say another thing about the reserves. Some people wanted to cut some of the projects, saying that I think they can do it for less, and then we can give them reserve money if they need more. But we said, some of us said, that requires a town meeting vote. And so why not give them what they project to need? Because if they don't use it, they will not take it. Like, we have a good history. The reason there are reserve funds, one reason, is that people don't spend everything that they're awarded and they return it. Like 400,000 was returned from the Hurd Field project, for example. So personally, I don't feel comfortable spending all our reserves. That's me personal. And there was a deliberation on it. Some people didn't want to spend any of our reserves.
And to Rebecca's point, it's parkland, so Mass Constitution Article 97 prohibits diminishing it from its present, public use without a 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature, which is equivalent to saying ain't gonna happen. So, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, clarification. The digitization project, is that the only one you're fully funding that the request that someone came to you for on this go around, came to you for with a request? Was that the only one that you decided you would give your full request?
No, we funded the full request for all except the Crosby Courts.
But I guess I mean the project itself.
Oh,
So there's
Yeah.
nothing you're fully funding other than the digitization.
yeah, we very rarely fund the entire project.
And right now, you have, I would imagine there are projects in the pipeline that you're seeing, right? Including like town hall.
Town hall.
So you might be thinking, let's hold some reserve because next year we're only going to get this much money, but we want to use that reserve and add it on.
Yeah,
So is that like the type of thinking you have every year?
I think so, yes. And we don't have this much reserve in any given year. And we did spend more than the revenues for this year. But no, I mean, that's a good point. We don't know what the projects are gonna look like next year, except town hall. We didn't wanna spend the entire reserve. And as I said, one person didn't wanna touch any of the reserve for that reason. But I should say, much credit to the applicants, because I forgot to tell you this. Our preliminary applications were $8 million, which was a shocking record. So we asked the applicants to prioritize the projects, because some applicants had multiple projects. And we said, please submit only one large application. And we kind of defined large as 100,000 or more. And then we said, please tell us the minimum you need to make some progress on this. So it was really only after the applicants adjusting their requests that we got the requests that were acting on the final applications.
Paul, then Jordan, then Josh.
We're gonna take Topher first, because I've been waiting there.
Topher?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just had a question. Were there any projects that you had to deny funding for, like an application that got in and you just said, we can't do it?
Only in the preliminary stage. In the final applications, we funded all of them, one of them at 50% and the rest at 100%. But we got, some applicants had more than one project for the preliminaries.
So you did to them just pick one project and basically go
Yeah,
for
we
it.
said, could you please prioritize one large project? Because the homelessness prevention is a small project and very, very impactful. So, we just ask people to submit only one large project and small ones too, if they have them.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Two questions. One is, Historically, do you know how much of the reserve has been spent in previous years?
There hasn't been, it varies, there hasn't really been a policy and there hasn't been this large a balance in the past.
And the second question is, and this will probably be very hard, but do you have an order of magnitude guess as to what the actual town hall repair is going to require?
Paul, can you please speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry, I was asking if they have a order of magnitude guess as to what the town hall repair is ultimately going to require.
Yes, that is my project, so I can speak to that. So the town hall restoration is the exterior, making sure that the roof and the windows and everything is watertight. As you can see, as you walk through town hall, there are water stains and there's damage all inside along the ceilings and on the walls as a result of water infiltration. The estimate that we received, so in 2022, there was a feasibility study performed. The estimate that we received when we calculated out for FY28 is about 10 million. We have an owner's project manager. So when you have a public construction project, you need to hire an OPM, an owner's project manager, a designer, and then you can start the construction. So right now we have the OPM working to draft and to develop the bid to get the designer on board. Those two steps will help us get a better, refine that number just a bit more. So hopefully by next year, you'll see us and we'll have an actual number.
Presumably, a little of that might come from CPA, but a lot of it's going to come from the capital budget, probably.
He asked if all of the money that we're asking next year, if that would come from CPA or capital. And I guess that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, I mean, we won't have that much from CPA, but we could bond. We've never bonded. We could partially bond the CPA, and I mean, there's different combinations that will have to be discussed. But one thing is that if we do bond, then the historic preservation category is going to be almost, fully used on debt service. So anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a question for Wednesday night for capital as well.
Yes.
Jordan.
No, that was my question. I was just looking for an update on where we stood with the town hall project, and I think you answered everything very well, so thank you.
Josh?
Thank you. You said that if a grant isn't used, accessed, then it goes back to reserve. Are organizations allowed to roll it over, like let's say the tennis courts, they wanted to roll it over and get another grant next year, can they do that?
They can apply for another grant.
So that this would go away, like the 700,000 would go away and they'd have to reapply?
Oh,
No, it would stay for 3 years, 3
I
years.
see, okay. And then just the other thing is a comment, I mean, I understand the desire to spend the reserve, but we're probably heading into more challenging years rather than less challenging, so I think in this case, keeping reserve, because we might need it more next year, makes sense.
Especially, thank you. As Christine said, we never had a balance like this. This was a much bigger balance than expected.
Alan Jones.
So sort of a question about the reserves. As I'm treasurer of the Historical Society, I'll let you know I'm going to abstain from this vote. But we've received a lot of money from CPA to do a lot of great things. And I think about 3 years ago, there was an appropriation of about $70,000 to do the last phase of the restoration, which you're going to get an invoice for. The way CPA works is you spend the money and then you apply for reimbursement. We haven't been reimbursed for any of that. So you're going to get an invoice pretty soon for around $70,000. Now, is that encumbered or is that part of the reserve?
It's encumbered.
It's encumbered, okay. So those things are not part of the reserve. Yeah.
Carolyn?
Which one was funded at only 50%? I have two questions.
The Crosby Courts restoration and rebuilding.
Okay. This isn't even the courts that are used by the high school.
They're used by Arlington Catholic, not the high school, right?
So Arlington Catholic rents the space.
They pay fees, yeah, because I asked about that. Can they help?
And, okay, so they pay them to the rec department. And is this same sort of cement used for the high school at Grove Street?
No, it's asphalt. All our other courts are asphalt, and the designer has proposed post-tension concrete as being more durable.
Rebar?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think yeah. So our understanding is it's the most costly part of the project.
And I assume that sooner or later, the high school will be asking for the same thing to happen at Grove Street. So we're seeing 1.4 million for how many tennis courts? Twice? I mean, the Grove Street there's only 4 at Grove Street. How many are at,
This is for,
how many are at,
5 at Grove, and I'd say about 5 at Crosby too.
so we'll be seeing another project.
And 5 on.
There's a court assessment, there's a court conditions assessment, and the Parks and Rec Commission will only put forward the courts that are listed in that assessment, and I don't think those courts are on there.
they're pretty
anytime
good.
soon. Yeah, I don't think
They
that
will be,
they're
I mean, if Arlington
conditioned.
Catholic gets nice support.
The condition
Well-
of these courts,
They're
across the state.
Yeah, it's really for the community users too. I mean, they've been, the user community, not just Arlington Catholic, has been unhappy with how they feel they're unsafe. So, but Grove Street, I mean, I played on Grove Street, they're really nice. And we asked them that, like, other courts are nice, and are they this concrete? And they said no. So, does that help?
The other one is the homeless, so do we not have costs set aside for homeless services similar to this in departments in town? Okay.
And this is, they're asking for a small fraction of what about 10% of what they expect to give out, the HCA.
And where do they get the revenue to give out the other funds? Go ahead.
They fundraise,
Okay.
so it's all private donations.
Right.
For that purpose. I mean, most of their projects are, they're leveraging the property to, put together a performance, so on and so forth, but the Homeless Prevention Fund is fundraising.
Okay.
So,
And how often do you think they'll ask for money in the future?
I don't know. But, it's a small fraction of what they're spending every year. And I just worked on a fundraising project for them, so I know the numbers. They have some very generous donors who give more than that every year.
Have they asked for more than 20?
I don't think they ever have, I don't recall, but the Somerville Homeless Coalition in the past has asked for similar amounts for their programs, which they're paying, they're leasing apartments in Arlington for people. So I don't recall, I think we funded once in my time another project for the HCA program, and I don't recall the amount, the order of magnitude was certainly the same.
Just for the record, I was the chair of a homeless shelter for 5 years, so I'm not asking because I don't think it's a good choice of money. My question is, should we be giving them more if they asked for more? And it's good to hear that they're fundraising, and this is only about 10% of the budget, because based on the quotes, 20,000 doesn't get you very far. So, okay.
Yeah, about 8 or 9 people, yeah, I know. And actually, that's why in drafting the reports, we're trying to explain how much total that people need for these projects compared to what they're asking us for.
And is this too on a reimbursement basis?
This is,
How are these monies doled out?
you mean the
Yes,
home, the
reimbursement.
HPP, yeah. And they actually hook the client up with a social services manager, and they may talk to the landlord. They usually pay the landlord, like if the person's behind on rent.
Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you mentioned bonding before, I think it was with respect to the envelope of the town hall, but regardless, how does that affect the minimums allocation of the various 10%? In other words, does the debt service apply to that over the life of the bond?
Yes, if you were to bond $10 million, I think the first year it's, the repayment is, let's say it's 700,000. There would still be enough in, for the other categories. Is that what you're
Yeah, I'm
asking
trying to
about the other
understand how
categories?
that affects that,
Yes, it would-
those minimum percentages.
Yes, there would still be sufficient funding to cover that, the minimum, the other categories.
But it would virtually crowd out any other
Historic
spending
preservation.
in that category.
Absolutely, that's what I meant, yeah. It would.
Thank you.
Annie, did you have anything else?
No, just that my recollection is that both Grove Street and the Spy Pond Court's been done relatively recently.
Mhm.
I think they have probably a 15-year, 20-year lifespan, I guess.
Yeah, but I think they've both been done within that lifespan.
So, yeah.
I think they've both been done within that lifespan.
Spy Pond has done more than 10 years.
Yes, but Grove Street, I wanna say Grove Street was done sometime around the kids.
10 years.
Split. Yeah.
I
It was
mean,
very
Crosby
recent.
was done also, but, I mean,
Really?
they had a life.
I don't remember Crosby being done.
Peggy?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you, talk a little bit about Emma's Court? Is this money, what stage are they at?
They acquired, so I believe this was, the tenants reached out to HCA because someone was gonna buy the building and raise the rent, these 2 apartment buildings on Mass Ave. And HCA was able to acquire the building, so they've already bought them. And they got a state grant, I mean, they got a lot of help to do that. And so they own the buildings, and they've talked to the ARB about their plans for construction. So it's like this L shape across from the high school, this L shape 1920s brick building, and then another brick building to the right, and then a 2-family up the street, abutting. They own all that. So the stage is now that they have the plans, they're talking to the ARB, and they're looking for, to fund the entire $27 million project.
And this 500,000 will be used for?
They use it to demonstrate local match.
Got it.
For the state programs.
Yeah.
For local support, not match. It's far from a match.
Other questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like to wait because sometimes people ask the same questions, so it helps me. Back to the tennis courts, big believer in all of the stuff, but it is a big price tag, and I wonder how much control you have over the process of the decision. Like, do they just say, this is how much it costs? You can't say, well, what would it cost? Right? They just help you with the project.
We do informally give feedback, because we had site visits this year, which we've never had before. And we can informally give feedback, but we don't really get down and dirty on the design of these projects. But we can certainly say, I don't like, your plan for X reason, and I'm gonna vote against funding it. But at the site visit, that's when all the asphalt versus concrete came up. And Ken Lau, who's the ARB chairman, who's on our committee, he wouldn't mind, it's a recorded meeting, but he said, champagne taste on a beer budget and asphalt would cost so much less, but we can't force them to use asphalt, but all we can say is we can't fund this kind of level. We just can't. It's half our it's half our revenues.
And they appreciate that. And also, so there's no benchmark or something about what an alternative cost might be.
Well, now they need to look. I
Now
mean,
they need to.
yeah, well, they need to look because we're only giving them we're only recommending 750,000, so they have to look for ways to make that work. If it doesn't, I mean, not to be too harsh, but if it doesn't work, they won't they won't submit invoices because they won't do the work, and then it'll still be in CPA, but I guess these courts are really bad,
They are
cracked
really
and
bad,
dangerous,
stuff
yeah.
that they're really bad,
Yeah.
but it's also, I don't know if they're 1.4 bad.
No, I
You
know,
know, they might only be 800,000.
I don't know how to judge that, except for, all we saw was the post-tension concrete was like 6-something thousand, hundred of the total.
And yeah, again, this is more the design part, and
Yeah.
may not come in front of you, but lifespan for this versus the other, or they don't, I mean.
They said it's longer, but I don't know how much longer, but that's one of the rationales, is the durability.
And one final thing, so this is, this might be a procedural, FinCom question. We just vote on the whole amount, right? We can't part and parcel the direction of the project.
We vote on endorsing the plan.
Vote on
We want the whole plan.
the whole plan, that's right, all right, well,
But-
thank you very much.
But at town meeting, there is precedent for people saying, I want to remove this project, but people can propose amendments, that happens at town meeting.
So I'm sorry, so then, so how does that work? Then you go back to them and say, no, we can't fund it, or?
Well, town meeting's making the appropriation,
I
so
see.
if town meeting votes to remove a project, we can't do anything.
I understand, no,
Yeah,
that, it wasn't.
but- There's been 2 votes like that, but it hasn't succeeded, yet. We would prefer that people come to us in the review process and say they don't like it, instead of trying to remove it at town meeting, but it's the right of town meeting members to do that.
I see, right, that, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, yeah.
Josh?
I don't know if Charlie was gonna say, my recollection was that generally the renovations in the courts used to be about 500,000. I'm just looking at 2017 capital thing that says they finished Spy Pond. So I think that was the last course that was renovated. And if you play, I would say Spy Pond's in decent shape, but there are some cracks that are starting to emerge. So I would guess they have like 50, because I don't really know, but somewhere around 50.
Sure.
You know.
There's a basketball court too, Christine reminded me that, probably didn't say, there's also a basketball court in this Crosby project.
Right.
Charlie, do you have anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Josh, by the way, we got an additional 5 years out of the Spy Pond courts before they got repaired, because my wife patched them.
All right.
I have a question about the philosophy of for example, the support of the tennis courts at half the value or whatever. If you allocate $750,000 and they can't get the other $750,000, and then they don't spend the money, haven't you effectively blocked out some other people who could have used that money?
Yes, we have, and yeah. I have to say, we asked them for the minimum of what they needed and they said 1.2 million. So some of us said, let's not fund it. And there was another suggestion to hold 650,000 in an open space reserve to give them a chance to think about the project. And then it was available to CPA for any open space project next year. But somebody else proposed giving them half, and they said, we've talked about it a lot and we think we can do something with the half. But your point exactly, I felt the same, that
So who actually applied for and is getting this money?
it's the recreation
The
and,
town, right?
yeah, the town, and Park and Rec Commission votes on it.
But that's the same town that has $1 million in the reserve in the recreation
Right.
fund.
Yeah.
Right, 1.2. Yeah.
So you were suggesting,
My fund was done in 2011 for $525,000.
Shirley, are you suggesting that the project will be finished, it will be done with that money and that money? There's enough money to do it one
I'm
point?
just confused that, everybody's, well, there seems to be some concern that there's not enough money to finish the project, and if it doesn't get funded, that money is sitting there, it's not being used by the CPA committee.
But it'll get used next year.
Right, but, you know, I mean, there are other people who probably have made, I mean, I'm not in the middle of the application stream, but I'm sure that there are other requests. So I think Chuck's question about what's that $1 million being used for is very apropos, because if it's not gonna be used, then maybe you shouldn't be spending the $750,000 either.
I don't wanna speak for the Parks and Rec Commission, but I just wanna clarify, so $1 million in reserve for an operation that, you know, has a significant amount of money that's coming in and out every day, every month. They have a building that they're managing, a rink that they're managing, so there are a number of other expenses that could at any moment need to be tapped into. The current building they're in, they need to put in ADA accessible restrooms. I know that there's some talk about that. All of the parks and playgrounds in town are covered by Parks and Rec, and there's no capital funding for the renovation of most of them. Any day there could be an emergency that pops up and something needs to be repaired. So I think it seems like there's a lot of money, but it really, $1 million can't be taken and put towards just Crosby.
It could be 600,000. I mean, the point that I'm making is that the purpose of the enterprise fund is to retain earnings to be used for capital expenditures in the purpose of the fund. I'm just trying to connect the dots here. Thank you.
Oh, that's, Carolyn.
According to concrete companies, and somebody can correct me, it sounds like asphalt lasts about 15 years, asphalt courts, or do they go as far as 20, which is what they're suggesting?
I'm certainly not a professional.
Okay, I mean, I don't play tennis, so if you're using the court, you know, they say 15 to 20 years for asphalt and up to 30 for this concrete. So maybe you get 8 years more, is what it sounds like, for spending twice as much.
And maybe it's better to, no, I don't know the difference, yeah. Ken thought it cost 1/5 as much to do asphalt. But, yeah.
Are you done, Carolyn?
Sorry, yeah. No, but you're right, it could be a better decision to redo the asphalt soon, you know, sooner, but have spread out the funding.
Grant, then Chuck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So now, Charlie makes an excellent point, but I'm also concerned on the other side is like, what's gonna get built for half the amount? You know, like 2 courts instead of 4, it has me a little bit nervous about, well, geez, we haven't got to spend this $750 because that's what we got instead. So I'm just worried now. I'm a little concerned about what the final project would be at half as much, unless they actually did go to asphalt. If there's any change, actually, so if there's any change in plans, would they tell you that? Would they say, well, with the $750 we decided to do asphalt, or would they?
Yeah, we didn't.
These are issues that the Parks and Rec Commission will vet. I really trust their judgment. I don't think they're going to cut out a number of cords. I don't know what the plans will be. Something we can certainly ask them for a report on before they move forward.
We paved the basketball court, we'll not put up the hoop or something, right? All right, well, thank you. I mean, it's, you don't know is the answer, but that is a concern I have. It's like, well, what will they build if they're not given the full amount? And what checkpoint is to stop them from doing it? And also, if they do that, it would be at the expense or something else that could have been built. So, all right, well, thank you.
Well, I mean, so I don't know if you remember the Hills Hill mountain biking, and we had a lot more warning then. and a lot more information and a lot more public input, and so we did place conditions on that. You know, that, and, I mean, I take your point.
I appreciate it, you guys, your hands are
Yeah,
tied.
no, I take your point. It feels more comfortable to fund something when you see a design in front of you. But at least Park and Rec has done good work on their other projects, and they have returned money regularly, you know, that they haven't used. So I think they'll be, I trust them to be responsible and to do something that'll benefit the community, but we just couldn't give them 1 point.
There was also a significant community input session, and I think if they were to cut back on that plan that was promised to the community, I don't think that.
No, the saving
community
grace
would
is
agree.
is the Parks and Recs that's kind of overseeing all of it.
Yeah, they talked about maybe doing the 4 tennis courts and delaying the basketball and not putting as many amenities in the, like shade structures and things like that. They may
That's
do
kind of the concern, yeah, so.
Yeah, that may happen, and then they
fix
may
one-
have,
They fix one half of the court, but not the other half.
but then apply later to do the rest. You know, I don't know what they're gonna do.
All right, thank you.
All right, Chuck, then Al Jones, Chuck, then Al Tosti.
Yeah, so just a couple comments. So Christine, the Parks and Rec has had a surplus for the last 10 years. So I know you're saying they may need money for certain things that pop up, but the history shows that they have a surplus every year, so.
I thought the surplus was really only the past few years because of the preschool. I didn't think that it was as that significant 10 years ago.
All right, y'all, it was, 1.2 this year, 1 last year, 1.3 in 2023, et cetera. So they have this money. So and they have that kind of money every year. And then there's also there is a playground capital spend, I believe, in the school budget that's not getting covered by Parks and Rec. So they don't cover the full scope of the playgrounds. So one thought is, they're asking for a lot of money through the CPA. All the other projects seem very deserving, and they don't have $1 million surplus that they can leverage. So I'm wondering, one suggestion is to reduce the scope of the funding given for the Crosby courts, and they can make it up with the enterprise fund to do the full scope, concrete, trees, whatever, and reallocate that to something like HCA. So that's something that I'll throw out there.
Are you a town meeting member?
I am,
Amendments?
yeah.
That's.
Al Tosti?
Yeah, I just, we do this all the time. People come to us for X number of dollars for the committee and for doing an X project, and they say, well, we'll give you half, you go find the rest. I mean, that's standard. We did that to the cable TV last year. We said, we'll give you 100, go find the rest. And, here's a project which has to be done. It's too much money for CPA, so they said, we'll give you half, go find the rest. With the veterans, we'll give you part, you have to go find the rest. And Foot of the Rocks, we'll give you half, you go find the rest. So we do, this is happening all the time, and probably 90% of the time, they go find the rest. It's either state grants or local fundraising or something like that. So I don't think it's a unreasonable thing for the CPA to do, to stretch their funding as best they can. And if the project doesn't get done, the money comes back and is given out again. So I support what they're doing.
Thank you. I think the difference though in this project, Al, is that we always ask applicants, what's the minimum you need? And we didn't. They said 1.2 million. So it evolved in the course of the discussion that they could use 750, but I would rather people say, I can do, tell us the minimum and
they'll go find the rest.
Yeah, and we'll go find the rest. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned that in the preliminary stage, there were groups that had more than one request, and then you asked them to focus on one. Was Parks and Rec one of the groups that had more than one, or was this their only one?
I think this was their only one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Paul?
If the Recreation Commission wanted to take some of the reserves and added to the 750,000. Could they do that without that being part of the budget that gets voted on by town meeting?
Other questions of the CPA? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll let you know what we decide when we get around to doing it.
Okay. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Feel free to send any other questions.
You want more?
You always have great questions, so sure, bring it.
That sounds like there are two openings if you know anyone.
Madam Chairman, would it make sense perhaps for us to get more information from the rec department before we would vote on this?
We'll put that aside when we bring this topic back up.
Okay,
Right now, we have Article 31 to talk about.
okay, great. Thank you.
And I take it you are from?
I am Carmine Granucci.
All right,
So-
and you are the proponent of Article 31?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us everything we should know about it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, hello everyone, I'm Carmine Granucci. I live at 16 North Street. I am also a town meeting member in precinct 21. And I am here today to present on my warrant article that I put forth for town meeting. Article 31, which is a home rule petition for a 61B exemption. So what I'm asking is town meeting to authorize the select board to file home rule legislation with the Mass State legislation exempting Arlington from the requirement to accept and grant applications for tax assessment under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 61B, while preserving the town's first refusal option and ability to collect applicable convenience and rollback taxes. So, folks aren't familiar with Chapter 61B. It is a set of laws and regulations that provide a significant reduction in property tax assessments for land classified as recreational. It was originally designed to preserve open space for public benefit. However, private country clubs, two of which are in our town, which are not open to the general public, have used this provision to dramatically reduce their tax obligations, shifting the burden to residential property owners. Under 61B, qualifying land receives approximately 75% reduction in assessed valuation, and in a town like Arlington, which is 95% residential and structurally constrained by Proposition 2.5, every dollar of lost tax revenue from preferential treatment directly increases the burden on homeowners. So what does this article do? This would end Arlington's obligation to accept new Chapter 61B applications for preferential tax treatment, and it will prevent the Board of Assessors from granting any new 61B classifications. It would not force any property to be sold or change its use. It will not eliminate the town's right of first refusal if 61B land is sold or converted. Bear in mind that I'm saying that as 61B actually has rules around conversion and how the land is sold. It will not affect the town's ability to collect rollback taxes owed on previously granted 61B classifications. And it will not change how the assessor determines valuations. Right now, everything is actual use versus highest and best use. So just to give you a little bit of context here, if you can show the screen where I put up the next page on this, page 2, if you don't mind, where it's sort of the analysis of the two country clubs in Arlington. So we have two private country clubs in Arlington. There's Belmont Country Club. They have about 11.5 acres of land that takes up space in Arlington as part of their golf course. That land is under Chapter 61B classification. They, like I said, they have 11.5 acres. They pay roughly $6,000 a year in taxes for that land. So that's approximately $554 per acre. Winchester Country Club has taken advantage of 61B, but this most recent fiscal year, they decided not to. And so while they are not being assessed with that benefit from 61B, they are still taxed as actual use, which is a golf course. And so the almost 48 acres of land that they have in town is being assessed at that larger scale. So it is not taxed like it could be as the best use if you took that 48 acres and split it up into quarter-acre lots, which would probably generate millions of revenue for the town. So in other words, even though they are not taking advantage of that 61B, they're, like I said, it's being taxed as a golf course, and that roughly is around approximately $4,500 per acre they are being charged. Now, as I mentioned, Winchester Country Club not taking exemption, but that doesn't mean they couldn't change their mind in upcoming fiscal years and ask for the 61B exemption for their land. They have in fact done this in the past. From 92 to 2003, they were fully under 61B. From 2004 to 2008, they dropped the 61B entirely. And then in 2009, they split the property. They put the clubhouse, 5 acres, as a golf course, and then 40 acres back under 61B. And then most recently in fiscal year 2026, they dropped 61B entirely, and all 45 acres now are assessed as a golf course. So unsure of what their motive was for that, but that there is some stipulation around the laws with 61B where if, as I mentioned, around collecting tax or giving the town the first right of refusal. So in other words, if they decided to sell the property, the town could buy it first before anyone else could. If they don't have that 61B exemption, those things go away, so they could potentially sell to a private entity. So anyways, essentially, the burden, if you scroll down a little bit on this page, the burden is pretty substantial between what Belmont Country Club pays, what Winchester Country Club pays, and what an average Arlington residential individual pays in town. So this, like I said, this law sort of looks to make sure folks in town that are paying their fair share of property tax in town. I did some assessments. There's some data here on what other properties pay, but essentially, just saying Belmont Country Club is paying $6,000 a year for 11.5 acres in town. I mean, that enough is that's pretty substantial. I mean, I paid more than that for 0.1 acre of land on my property, right? And now for folks, so what does the impact do? So if we were able to remove this exemption, that would at least make Belmont Country Club not be applicable for this exemption, and so it would probably, based on what the land use, like how the Winchester Country Club is being taxed, it would probably generate about $50,000 more in tax revenue for the town. So they would pay their fair share, but assessed as a golf course. I modeled this after Belmont town meeting 2 years ago. Did this exact same thing because of Belmont Country Club being in there. It was almost unanimously voted passed through town meeting, and right now it's sitting in state legislation to eventually get passed. The unfortunate thing is that legislation would only apply to Belmont getting the exception. So Arlington has to do the same if we want to get that exemption as well. So that's my reasoning behind this article. Again, trying to, given that we are 5.5 square miles, there is more than, there's at least 11 acres getting this discount. And then, as you look at the assessments of this golf course, like the Winchester Country Club being assessed, we don't want them to be able to go back to that 61B. So looking to just ask the state to exempt us from having to do that. So that's my pitch. That's my reasoning for putting forth this article. Happy to answer any questions as I went down quite a rabbit hole to get some data on all this.
Okay, thank you. Chuck?
So, yeah, it's very good, thank you. Yeah, this is a great find. What's the motivation for going off 61B? Do you have any guess why they would do that?
Why Winchester Country Club would go
Yeah.
off? I do not know. I don't want to speculate for their reasoning. You know, they may want to pay their fair share, or they may be looking to not have to deal with having to pay the rollback taxes or give the town the first right of refusal if they do sell the property.
Thank you.
That anything like I said, anything I would come up with would be speculation. I have no idea without asking.
David and then Rebecca, and then Michael.
So, thank you. So you mentioned that Belmont had a similar article and it was
Correct, yep.
passed and it went to the legislature.
It is a sitting.
How long ago was that?
So it went to legislation, I think a year ago.
So it's been in committee for a year.
It's been in committee and it's getting bounced around. And I don't think that is, I think that's just how some of these home rule laws work. It has not been said, they haven't said no to it, but it is sitting in committee right now. I think
That's in past history, that's the way to kill a bill. Just let it sit in committee. We have a couple bills that were passed by our town meeting recently, and they've been sitting there, and they're not coming out of the committee. Not pertaining to real estate, but other matters.
I mean, I think with sometimes with home rule legislation, the more towns that go ahead and try to do things like this, it creates more awareness in the state state legislation to recognize it. I did talk to Sean about this as well, and so he's aware and is supportive of it. I haven't got followed up with him, but he was going to talk to you because Dave Rogers is sponsoring the current one in Belmont, right? So him and did I put down here? Yes, I can't remember. Yeah, it's Brownsburger as well. He's sponsoring the current legislation that is.
But it's been sitting in committee for almost a year.
Yes, pretty much, yes.
Thank you.
Rebecca?
Thank you. So Belmont's current 61B exemption, do they have to reapply for that every year?
So in my discussion with the assessor, yes, like every year before the assessment, they have to say that they are going to take the 61B exemption.
So when you say that if this were approved by the legislature and then it would prohibit new 61B applications, your intention is that it would then apply to Belmont when
Correct.
they do their annual.
Exactly, yes.
Great. Thank you.
And then that would prevent Winchester from going back
Yeah.
to 61B.
Thank you.
Michael?
That was my question, thank you.
Carolyn?
Have you talked with legal in Arlington about it, about your warrant?
I did send it to them. I did not get a response, but I followed to the T what Belmont did. So I don't see any problem with the wording is exactly the same as what Belmont put forth in their town meeting.
And David covers both Belmont and Arlington, so he would, was he the sponsor for this?
He's a sponsor for so basically, the Belmont Select Board put it forward to the House with Dave's support. So Dave would have had to put the bill into the House. For us, it would have to be Dave and Sean, right? Like they would have to put it forth, right? Again, what is in the House, the State House now, will only apply to Belmont.
Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I haven't looked at the Belmont Country Club, but a couple of years ago I did look at Winchester. And I haven't looked at it this year, but there were in Winchester, the total number of acres of Winchester Country Club in Arlington, I think is 48 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And in Winchester is 122 acres. The average valuation, this is in 2022, for Winchester was about $77,000 per acre, whereas in Arlington it was $200,000 per acre. So we were collecting at the time, for our smaller parcel, we were collecting $160,000 in taxes. And Winchester, for the larger parcel, was calculating $187,000 in taxes. So, you know, relative to what Winchester was getting in 2022, Arlington was getting a much better deal. Now, what is your deal going to change in this? I mean, what at the end of the day, what counts is what we collect in taxes.
Of course.
So how is that going to change?
Well, this will allow Belmont to at least pay their fair share, right? So Belmont Country Club right now is taking advantage of that 61B exemption, right? So we will collect by allowing us to not allow this exemption, we would be able to collect the full of what we could of the actual use of Belmont Country Club. Now, to the assessment, one could make an argument, I guess, and this is not something I have gone down yet about, but you could argue to the, I mean, there might be a way to argue to the Board of Assessors that we are not appropriately taxing these land masses in town. Now, mind you that both Arlington is 5.5 square miles, 48 acres plus 11 acres. That is like 1 to 2% of our town's land, right? That is not being used for residential, not being used for commercial, and is not paying the entirety of the revenue that could be bringing into the town. So I would say that there might be an argument to make that we should be taxing them at the best use of that property, not at the actual use, right? Because this is a golf course in the middle of town. That is not what I'm trying to do here right now, is just to set the framework that we should not allow that exemption, period.
So, but your argument, you're saying that the land has to be, this is, the way I see it, this exemption removes the requirement for the land to be taxed at its highest and best use. And that's a principle that's been killing farmland in this country almost universally. Because the highest and best use can be, you know, a factory, can be residential houses, et cetera, on a tax basis. So somewhere in the history here, I'll say the town fathers or some, you know, town government, whatever, made the decision that having country clubs in Arlington or allowing land like that to be open space, even if it's not used by all people in the town, is not inappropriate. And so it's not necessarily taxed at that highest and best use. If you tax it at the highest and best use, maybe you're going to drive them out of business. Has to be an outcome that we have to recognize as possible, if not inevitable. Have you thought about that?
Perhaps. I mean, I think ultimately you could ask the question of why do we have, you know, over 60 acres of land that is not publicly accessible in town when we are struggling as a town to grow or grow a revenue?
Because it happens to be a country where private ownership of land is permitted and encouraged by law. And it's private ownership. I mean, we could say that nobody can own
right, but
land
why should
and all land has to be available to everybody. I mean, this is a spectrum of judgment.
It is, but I'm not judging what they want to do with it.
You
right?
are judging.
Well.
Okay, let's have questions and answers.
Right. So
Then when it comes to whether we weighed in and how we weighed in, we can debate and argue.
Fair.
All right, Paul, and then Topher, and then Carolyn.
Do you know if there's been any other town in Massachusetts that has successfully gotten a similar home rule petition passed by the legislature?
I do not think so. I know only Belmont. I know Swampscott had done something. Some of the other, but yeah, I do not know another one that has successfully done this. Belmont is one of the first.
Topher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one point of information. I did discuss this with the Director of Assessments, and he did report back that basically the town's valuation of golf courses has been validated at the appellate tax board level. So they have successfully defended how they value a golf course. And I think, in terms of this question about actual use versus best use. And then Paul asked my question, which was, it sounds like we don't know of any town that's managed to do this yet, and it is dependent on the legislature doing something. And if town meeting votes it, there'll be two asking for Belmont and Arlington. I don't know if there'll be others, but anyway, it may be worth doing this, but it is predicated on the legislature doing something, and as Dave pointed out, they sometimes are pretty good at not doing anything. That's all I have to say.
Carolyn?
So if you go to the bottom of page 2, my understanding is that Belmont's tax per acre would be close to, if not equivalent, to Winchester's tax per acre. Which is still significantly lower than residential or best use.
Correct, yes.
It's less than 10%.
Yes.
Okay. So
we would get some money. We would get about $50,000 more.
Right. It brings it up to the golf assessment.
Correct. Yes.
And in the process of doing that, we lose first right to refuse if they choose to sell.
No, because for Belmont Country Club, it does. I specifically say that the way the warrant article is written, similar to Belmont, is to say that we don't give up that right.
Okay.
So that we would still be able to, within that period that is allowed by law, that we would still be able to have first right of refusal, which I think is 10 years.
And is that true with Winchester? Would that be true with Winchester as well for the land that's in Arlington?
I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll consider this and get back to you. And is that it for people? All right, so let's quickly do our minutes and then move on.
May I ask a point of order now?
Sure.
So when do you folks will vote on?
Possibly tonight,
Okay.
if you get to it.
Okay.
Not making any promises.
Sure. No.
Do you want to pull up the minutes? Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes for March 4th, Wednesday? Does anyone need any more time to look at the minutes? Does anyone have any change?
Just have one clarification under section 4B, treasurer collector. Town maintains AAA rating even though methodology has changed to account more for debt. My notes say that methodology is going to change, that we currently have AAA. I just don't know if that's happened or not. And if there's a potential that we could.
They haven't changed methodology, but it's possible something that may happen in the future.
They haven't yet, but it might. So I would just move that we reflect that.
Got that? Yes. All right. Any other revisions? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes as revised?
So move that we accept the minutes as they are presented.
With Molly's revision.
With the revision, yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. All right, CPA. So, how do people feel about the CPA's projects, their plan for FY '27?
Do you want a motion or a discussion?
Make a motion.
Well, I move approval, or I move that we endorse.
Second. Discussion? Michael?
I'm not completely comfortable with the deference the committee shows to town administration. Basically keeping a funding slot open for them for next year. It appears to me that there's talk outside of the actual application about, and we'll be back next year for this, and we'll ask for more for that, and town hall's not finished yet, so let's save some money there. When the committee is sitting on, even after making its recommendations, there's still money left to be employed, money that's already been taxed and paid by us for the purposes. I think the town hall envelope project is being de facto funded over this year and future years, which doesn't seem to me right in terms of having to apply each year and be considered with the other projects that have applied in that same year. It seems like there's a special lane being reserved for the town, especially in that. And we're only getting to phase 3. And there's going to be another phase. And we're not going to get the cupola back. I haven't seen any plans for that. We removed a big piece of the historic architecture of town hall because it was leaking and the roof had to be fixed, so it was stripped off. And that bit of historic preservation has gone by the wayside. So town has lots of ways it could address the envelope, solidifying, the problems with the envelope. Maintenance budget, put it in, borrow it and see if we would agree to pay it out over the years. But they've got this in with the CPA folks, not just for the present year, but for future years. So I'm uncomfortable about that.
Annie?
So, I disagree with your characterization, Michael, but let me just say a couple of things
I'm
about
sorry, I
this.
said I was uncomfortable. I'm
One.
uncomfortable.
All right. Annie has the floor.
I sit on finance committees or serve as treasurer for many organizations and not just this one. And one of my key things I always work on as a treasurer is a reserve fund policy. I'm not a great believer that you should have no reserves, or that just because you have a reserve of a certain size, you have to spend it down. Every organization has to make a decision about what reserves they need to feel comfortable. I can tell you that personally, I'm very uncomfortable when an organization has less than 3 months running rate in reserve, which of course is not relevant to these conversations. But, so I think in general, the idea of preserving something in reserve for both the CPA and for perpetuation department is kind of an important thing. And you can debate what that reserve actually ought to be, but I think that's for those organizations to decide internally what they think a good policy is or what they're. As for an end, most of the organizations, the Historical Society, HBA, so on and so forth, that go to the CPA for money, go to them repeatedly. They have deep relationships with those organizations. And I'm sure that funding is projected forward for all of those organizations. Basically, there's a committee that's tasked with deciding what projects, of all the projects presented to them, they need to fund, and to ask all of the tough questions of those project providers and their designers, and make their judgment about what they think is the best use of these funds. And that committee is not us. Now, obviously, we all have opinions about all of these projects. I've got opinions about all of them too. I just don't feel like it's my job to second guess. It's my job to say whether I'm going to endorse or not endorse. And those of us who are town meeting members, obviously, in town meeting, we can make individual suggestions about whether or not particular pieces of this ought to be provided. In my experience sitting on the Arts Council, it wasn't unusual for us to ask an organization what they would do when we only funded them with half. And most organizations, when they answered, we will make it work, or we'll find the rest of the money elsewhere, actually did that. So I don't think that becomes some huge issue for the tennis courts. I'm actually kind of happy they forced the issue, because clearly they had, a range of choices about materials and could have stepped back on their own. And if the rec department decides they're gonna fund part of that project out of the reserve, that's great. I just don't want them to spend the whole $1.2 million. So that's kind of where I'm standing on this. I'm prepared to vote yes to endorse this article, even though I'm not that happy with all of these projects.
Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, back around 2002 or something like that, I voted against the CPA Act. And also, the most recent time when it passed, I fought against it, and it was stamped out by Susan Stamps. Town meeting passed it. But it is the town law. And the amount of money to be spent and the process for spending it is part of our infrastructure, our common infrastructure. So I strongly disagree with Annie. The Finance Committee has the prerogative to endorse or not to endorse. The question is, what are the grounds that we endorse? On what grounds do we endorse or not endorse? And from my viewpoint, listening to Sue Doctorow and Christine Maggiorno, they have a process that works. They've gone through it. They've thought about it. They've weighed the pros and cons, and they've come up with a plan. We may not like the tennis court, but overall, I think they've done a reasonable job. And I haven't heard anything that's so reprehensible that we shouldn't endorse what they've done. So, I'm in disagreement with Annie, but I'm agreeing with the plan.
I'm not sure we're that far apart. You're just reaching
No, the end
for it.
result, I just say we have a right to not endorse it.
Oh, I think we have a right to not endorse
But
it.
I'm just saying that what the process is, I think they've done a reasonable job.
Said better than I did.
Other comments? Josh?
Again, I'm certainly not an expert on any of this. I do play tennis, use a variety of those different courts. While they were talking, I was just looking through past stuff, and I think there was a 2021 rec department document that listed Crosby courts, and it was like $271,000 for asphalt, and maybe $471 for concrete. So obviously, things are going up in cost. This has been on their radar for a while. It's going to last twice as long, and it's going to increase. You could work out the numbers, and it's just kind of how much you spend per year, and it maybe comes out less to do concrete. So I would agree with Charlie and Annie that I think that they've done a pretty good job redoing this stuff.
All right, seeing no other hands, there's a motion to endorse the CPA plan. All in favor, raise your hand. Thirteen. Those opposed? 3, and abstentions. 1 abstention. All right, next is Article 31.
What was the final vote?
The final vote was 13 to 3 to 0. 13 in favor, 3 against. 1 abstention. Right, 13-3-1.
13-3-1.
All right.
Oh, is that okay?
Yep. fine. All right, Article 31. The first, Al?
Oh, I'm sorry.
The-
Go ahead and finish what you're saying.
The first question is whether we even get involved. It's not technically a finance article, it may impact finances. So, do we take a stand or not? If we take a stand, what is that stand gonna be? So, let's just open it up to discussion. Al-Tassi.
We have a very good board of selectmen. And I'm perfectly willing to let them do a lot of this work, and do the research. It could have a financial impact. I don't think it's that significant on a $200 million town budget. So I would, I'm not making a motion now, but I would think, we've heard the evidence, the selectman's gonna deal with it, they'll get the same information that Topher got, and they'll hear the same presentation and let them make the recommendation.
Jordan?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said, Al. It's kind of like, it's not directly impacting our finances, it's sort of adjacent. Obviously, it's gonna have some sort of fiscal, effect, depending on, how we raise the money. But I sort of see this as kind of like the MBTA Communities Act, right? I think a few years ago, I think we decided not to take a stand on it. It's not really directly your budget. It's sort of, again, it's adjacent. So my opinion is I don't think we should take a stance on this.
Other opinions?
Make a motion to not take a position on Article 31.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of Al-Tassi's motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's either good news or bad news.
Well, I should have asked that question, because both, I have to, talk in front of you folks, I've got to talk to the select board in 2 weeks, so who makes the decision for the action or no action? So now I know, it's the select board, right?
It's the select board. That's what we said.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you all. This is my first time doing this, so sorry if I was a little nervous.
Good job.
But I appreciate all of it. Thank you. Yeah. I should come more.
Oh, you would show more.
Oh, come on.
This is the most exciting day we've had in 2 months.
All right, well, I like that I brought a little excitement. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. Is it possible for us to do the DPW budget tonight?
I think we could get some out of the way.
Let's do that.
I do have an update too on facilities. We can wait towards the end, but I want to get that in there before we meet with the town manager on Wednesday.
Okay, so do you want to do facilities real quick?
I can give a quick update. So I just want to clarify, I'm not actually looking for a vote today. I wanted to get back on some answers, but I think there's some issues that are worth discussing so that we can be ready to discuss them on Wednesday with the town manager. So I want to get back to everybody with the answers that we were looking for with some of the follow-up. I think first on the electricity. So I made the mistake in my notes that I wrote down that they cover schools, but they do not cover schools. So the electricity budget that's presented in the actual budget for facilities, that does not cover any of the expenses. So just wanted to clarify that. So some of the things that I had an issue with, unknown at this point what the transfer is going to be for electricity. As we had talked about before, we're looking at a pretty significant transfer at the end of the year to balance out the budget. We don't know what that number is right now, and I think that that's something that we're going to have to get from the town manager's office since we're burning through the electricity budget pretty quickly. So I think that's something that we need to address. And natural gas, when we had spoken to the facilities director back before that cold spell hit, I think we were looking fine. I think since we had 6 weeks of extreme cold, it sounds like that number is probably gonna be, we're probably gonna go over budget. So I think we need clarification on those two items. And so for that reason, I'm not looking for a vote tonight, but rather just to make everybody aware that this is something that we're gonna need more clarification on and sort of what process that they're going through right now and what the plan is. So
Is the facilities director taking any action to reduce energy costs between now and the end of the fiscal year?
not that I'm aware of.
He better, because I don't think our reserve is gonna be big enough for all the asks we're gonna have this year.
Well, and to that point too, speaking of DPW's budget today, is we got some numbers on snow and ice, and that's gonna be quite significant. Paul, I don't wanna steal your thunder, but between facilities and snow and ice, it's a significant amount of money that we're potentially looking at. So again, I don't wanna steal too much of your thunder, but we're potentially looking at well over $500,000 worth of money that we're gonna have to figure out where we're gonna get it from, and I think that that's a problem.
I was just, one of the things that always bugs me in June is we basically get this fait accompli. Here's the reserves, you have no choice. And so I guess, I think, this is March, winter's over, tulips are coming up, no more of that. But I'd like to get an estimate from the manager's office on, maybe within a week or two, about what does he project in reserve fund transfers. So we can look at it and maybe have a little discussion or get back to him and say, how about all the employees bring sweaters to work or something. But something so we get it a couple months ahead of time as opposed to June here, voted, which is what's happened over the last couple of years, many years actually.
We did get a report in January from EDA where we were.
Yeah.
And when we get those reports, we should be asking our department heads, well, what are you doing? If what is facilities doing, because they can't spend with abandon. And we've got collective bargaining to pay for, we have snow and ice, facilities and other things as well. We may not have enough in reserve cover unless the people need to bring their expenses. So you might want to have a conversation with the director of facilities. What is he doing?
We get some projections.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just said the response that we got back on a few days ago was it's unknown and they need to figure it out. So I think we need a little bit more of an answer than that before we vote on the budget. Again, especially because, they essentially level funded it from last year, and we know that we had over $100,000 worth of transfers we had to do to balance out just the electricity bill itself. And again, we've kind of had an unusual cold spell of 6 weeks. We've had numerous snowstorms. These are going to be big expenses that, for us to close our books, we're going to have to know, or at least get some rough estimate of what a number is going to be.
I accept that snow and ice, you never know. But when you're a department that already overspent your energy bill the year before, then to come in this year and say, oh, we've overspent again, without an explanation of the plan, that, to me, it doesn't even, I question whether it's a proper reserve transfer.
I agree.
So,
I'm curious, the new facilities director is only here a year, right? It's been a year.
About a year.
So he's not really responsible for having overspent on the last reserve, I guess. It could be an argument. But I wonder on this budget, has the finance committee ever looked at putting in place a system where the number isn't just come up by facilities because they don't seem to know and there's a lot of turnover? Can we average it out over the past few years and and have a set number that is based on a previous average?
well, that's what DPW does, is
right.
that they come up with a formula to
For
based
snow
on
and ice and all that, so could we not do that in facilities since it's very similar? We don't know what the repair, so much is unknown, we don't know what the repairs are, we don't know what this is gonna be. Is there room for that kind of modification to this budget or not?
So this is my take on it in talking with the facilities director, again, he's been here about a year now, and it seems like there's minimal, from my conversation, my take on it, it seems like there's kind of minimal sort of minimal influence on what the budget is from that perspective, right? It's almost like this is the budget developed by the budget team and this is what it is, right?
And then they spend what needs to be spent because they don't have a choice.
And, well, they have to make up for the difference in things like electricity from whether it's the reserve fund, department transfers, whatever. So I'd like to see, you know, rather than just level funding it year over year, you know, what are our electricity costs and actually do.
Right, actually put in last year's costs. You know, this shouldn't be level funded from last year without the amount we overspent, you know.
I agree. Should not,
We actually spent last year, should be the.
we should increase it quite frankly, because we just added the school fully, it's fully built out, DPW is fully built out, so now that we're 100% using these buildings, you should, you know, it's not just last year, but it's probably a little bit more.
Charlie, did you have your hand up? Charlie, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry.
Did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. So, I guess this is a very interesting discussion. I mean, this is, the question is, how do we look at these variances this year and use them to inform the future budgeting process? I mean, that's what we're saying, right? And, you know, the town's traditional, response to that question is, let's have another override. And, I think that, Alan's comment that the manager should come back here and tell us what the variances are and how they're gonna take care of them before June. And then if they can't, what they're gonna do to get rid of those variances in the following year, or at least absorb them somewhere else in the budget, is a critical issue.
Paul?
And I was gonna say, so when the manager comes in, we need to ask him about it, because it's his budget. He has these electricity numbers, which seem unreasonable.
Yeah, I'm just curious as if you're the head of the department and you know you're blowing past your budget, isn't there some responsibility on the director's part to rein in? The fact of the matter is, there may not be A, money left in the reserve, and B, we may not vote for that. So I think he needs to realize that. Obviously, the town manager does too, but I'm curious as to what he's doing now to cut costs in his department. Alan?
Well, I think another reason to get the information sooner rather than later is we may have to increase the reserve fund appropriation, which could be, you know, everything has to balance. And we don't want to do that.
For next year?
Hmm?
You're talking about for next year?
Yeah.
To have more than 1% as our reserve.
Well, and then we draw down, we have to refill it.
Well, we're budgeted for 1%. And I'm
Yeah.
saying that at the end of this year, we may have nothing left in our reserve and maybe with still expenses to be paid. Are you suggesting for no, it goes back to general fund.
But still, if we anticipate more surprises in future years, we may want a larger reserve fund. So,
Or you could argue that you just have to cut your costs, you have to live within your budget and not expect to be able to come to the finance committee. All right, so is that it for facilities? Shall we move on to DPW?
Yeah, I think we can get started on facilities. So I think yours is kind of important for this conversation too. Do you want me to just get us started on the kind of the big picture items and then do summaries?
Did we get the most, I haven't got a most recent number on what the snow and ice over what is going to be.
Oh, I thought you did.
I
Alright, so we'll just start off generally and we'll go into, I think the first one we'll vote on is natural resources. Big picture overview, so again, there's 7 divisions that are covered by DPW. This budget does not include water and sewer division. Obviously, Grant, you do that one, but so this doesn't touch that budget. We've had an assistant director, James Mallory. He's been there for about a year now. That position was vacant for, I think, a year or a year and a half with the previous departure. Again, we've had somebody in there for about a year, a little over a year now. Some questions that had come in. There was a question about the status of the town-wide road maintenance plan and the sidewalks. So they continue to perform work to maintain the town's PCI rating. It's essentially a rating of your roads, of your sidewalks. They perform a survey every 5 years. There's a scale of where you run, where you can fall into, ranging from like 0 to 100. We're usually in the high 70s, we're usually somewhere around the high 70s, low 80s. Right now we're in the low 70s. And that's also some things that we do to extend the life. We do sealing, we do chip sealing, and then we also spend a mix of the capital budget and Chapter 90 funds to address roads. There was a question about Jason Street. There was a new speed bump on Jason Street, and we were told it's not so much a speed bump on Jason Street, but rather one of those like raised sidewalks that ended up turning into a speed bump. So they're going to revisit that in the springtime, and they're going to get that fixed. But it wasn't intended to be a speed bump. It's just supposed to be something to help people walk across the street a little bit easier.
It is ADA compliant.
Correct. So ADA compliance turned into a speed bump. So
Those people on Jason Street though, they go really fast.
As we've talked about I think we mentioned the new DPW building. It's fully open. So there are some punch list items that they're still working out. Some minor things that have come up that's being performed under warranty work. So they're not anticipating any new costs related to having to actually do any building or supplement any funds. So it's all anything that comes up at this point has been deemed warranty work. So that the vendor is addressing in a timely manner. So I thought that was important to note. And then the question that everyone is usually interested in is fund any extra projects that were funded out of the fiscal year 25 closeout. And the answer that we received is there was only one item of that was covered, and that was $90,000 that was used for project management from the DPW facilities project, and that was charged to the Public Works admin account. So in years past, there's been usually a handful of projects that have been funded, anywhere from usually it's like tens of thousands of dollars per. But again, really this year the only thing that was covered, $90,000 from the Public Works admin budget to cover costs for the project management. So, Micaiah, can you scroll down to the next slide, please? All right, so natural resources. Actually, I'll back up a little bit. I will say in the past, a general theme you'll see in throughout DPW is there's usually been a high number of vacancies. While there still are some vacancies throughout the department, they're not nearly as high, I think, as they've been in the past. So some positive, moving in a positive direction with the vacancies, although I will note that some still do exist. So right now, those vacancies in the Natural Resources Department, They are currently the motor equipment operator and the tree climber. So those two are currently, sorry, by the way, this is page in your budget book. This is page 83, well, 82, 83. So one motor equipment operator, one tree climber. So basically this just means when you need that work to be done, it just has to rely more on outside contracting. There is a process for addressing trees before they go to their contracted services for the for tree pruning and tree maintenance. Generally that's only called upon when to help reduce about a 2 months worth of logs. So when they get behind significantly with either urgent requests for trees to be serviced outside of kind of the routine maintenance, they do rely on the contracted help. I will note that there are, if you go to the personnel, there are actually 2 people named Gary and there are 2 people named Sinat, so you double checked for those of you looking at the salary tables. R&M, this is used for tree services, mowing and landscaping services. The tree planting, so they roughly do 300 to 350 trees per year. It was a pilot that was discussed with the tree committee to outsource this. It's an initiative of the tree committee to find a way to be able to plant additional trees, in addition to this pilot about planting trees on private land, which they're still working on. So getting tree pest management, you'll notice there's an $18,000 decrease. This was always used to cover emerald ash borer treatment, and it was reduced to budget restrictions, and Mike just wanted, or the DPW director noted if we wanted to maintain the same level of treatment for trees, then keep that funding higher. So less funds mean less trees are being treated. Contracted services. So if you'll notice, contracted services, it was an old line item. It looked like it was accidentally charged to the wrong budget line. It seems like it was just a mistake. Telephone expenses. This was supposed to be adjusted, but again, it's still there. The holiday lights, it was decreased by $10,000 with the intent that the holiday lights that are usually put up are going to be covered by the parking benefits district. The historic sculpture maintenance, you'll see that that was completely decreased and basically eliminated. So that covered the Uncle Sam as well as outside of the town hall. There's a statue, the bronze statues that you see out there. Essentially, that means they're not getting treated this year. We asked if that was going to be an issue, and yeah, his answer was if we don't get funding from it, then yeah, they're not going to be treated, and eventually, there's going to be issues with the state moving forward. So the state, the committee that they're in. You'll see small equipment. Only 176 was spent. I'm sorry. Small equipment, about 14,500 was spent. And I think that was from the purchase of electric leaf blowers that caused this to be in compliance with the town's new bylaws. They had to go out and purchase a bunch of new leaf blowers. And then unclassifieds, again, this shows up, it seems like something was charged mistakenly to this line. So we can do maintenance of town fields separate, but at this point, I would make a motion for the approval of total taxation amount of $1,940,817 for the natural resources budget.
Second.
Any questions? Alan?
I am really nervous about the cut in the tree pest management. I mean, we've tried very hard to build up our umbrella of trees. And if we don't take care of them, we'll go down, the tree canopy will go downhill fast. I'm tempted to say Alan made a motion on the benefits district to fully fund the, I can't remember, I think it was police.
Sure.
And that was about 20,000, if I remember correctly. That would cover this if we want to maintain it. But I don't know if I understand it correctly, it's the committee that makes the final recommendation. So I don't know if we can swap one out for the other, but
So this,
I'd be very tempted to do that.
this is for townwide trees. The parking district benefit can only be spent in that parking district.
Right, but we've, well,
But what you're saying is that we saved $20,000 or so there because we moved some salary. So
Right.
couldn't we, without throwing the manager's budget out of balance, increase the tree?
Well, playing devil's advocate,
Yes.
and the whole scheme of all the the asks and the requests and stresses, would we do that for those ash trees in town? Which frankly, I mean, when I was doing this budget, the treatment was only for some trees anyway. It was really just to try to hold back the tide of what eventually would come no matter what.
I mean, they've been using it every year. If you look at the actuals, even if we just put back 10,000, that would be my inclination. I don't know how other people feel.
Carolyn, Sophie, and then Peggy.
I too raised my hand because the other issue is lantern flies, do they impact trees? Because
There's
we
no
are.
treatment, we have no treatment for that. There's no treatment for that.
Okay, so we're not actually, it's just people putting out public. But I am concerned about the trees, watching all of the trees disappear in my little section of Mass Ave.
There's also a trees please fund, and I don't know what the status of that is, whether there's money that already is or can be used to cover Emerald Ash for. That might be a question for the director.
Oh, you know what, I apologize, I missed a note in here. It looks like if we wanted, the DPW director did mention if we want to maintain the same level of treatment for the trees, that we would need to use more of that money from the trees please budget, so.
Carolyn?
The only other thing about the sculpture, this is I'm changing topics, but they could get funds from CPA for sculpture, cleaning every year.
Sophie, did you have a question?
I do, or comment question. So I was looking at the two vacant positions, and I've gone through all my old paper budgets here, books here. The motor equipment operator 3, for example, has been vacant. The last year that we had something in our budget books with a name was fiscal year 23. Okay, it's been vacant in our budget books since then. It was at a step 6. Then it was brought down in a future budget book to step 4, saving some money, and now this year it's brought down to step 3 to save some money. are they actually looking to hire somebody, or is this like a little slush fund here? Because I don't know what, maybe that's where we get rid of a vacant position that hasn't been filled, and they keep decreasing the salary to then have money going elsewhere. Maybe we get rid of it. I don't know. And then for the tree climber, there has been a vacant tree climber also since fiscal year 23, as long as I've been on the committee. There's always been a vacant tree climber position.
And I think that legitimately is because it's so hard to find tree climbers.
But we've been figuring it out.
So that's a question, Jordan, for the director. Are they seriously going to fill that position? And if not,
because if not, the money can be spent for the trees and
or something else.
Or something else. I just feel like that's two spots we should be paying attention to after 5 years.
And it's not just because it's been vacant, it is vacant, it has been vacant, and instead of upping the salary, presumably to attract a candidate, they are decreasing the salary. Topher?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So on that point, I mean, they did say they had to hire contractors because they couldn't keep up with the workload. So I would think it might be worth checking, has it really been vacant for all 3 years, or has it been sort of a revolving door where people have come and gone? And so there's been a vacancy, but then it gets filled for a little while and there's vacancy. And I don't know the answer to that, but it might be worth checking on that to get clarity. Thank you.
I think it has been contractor services from my notes from prior years, but then in which case we're not hiring an employee, we're just hiring the contractor. And if that seems to be the solution, then let's just budget for it and get rid of the position.
Peggy.
So I'm getting back to that tree pest management question, and I hear what you're saying about losing the canopy, but I would really like to know what the science behind that decision is to reduce the budget by that much. I mean, I would hope, I mean, are they waiting for a solution to the ash borer, or are they, is it just a money thing completely?
Based on 5-year planning. Maybe you can get some more information on that, Jordan.
Well, the director did say it was just one of the necessary budget reductions to cut the expense budget. And that it seems like he hopes to pay for it from the trees, please.
Yeah, I believe that is the intention.
So that was a deliberate decision to reduce that budget line, but backfill it with trees, please.
That's our understanding, yeah.
Charlie?
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm confused or unclear as to what we're discussing. Has Alan made a motion to take the $20,000 from the parking budget and put it here to pay for the trees? Or is Sophie making a motion to use the salaries to pay for the tree treatment? You know, are we doing anything, or are we just discussing?
My understanding was Alan had a suggestion. He can make a motion, but he hasn't made a motion. Sophie, I don't believe, made a motion. She wants more information because she may well be satisfied, depending on the information, or she may make a motion that we eliminate that position, and then the next decision would be whether to use that money to not use trees, please, but to pay the emerald ash borer treatment from that, or just move it in, save the money, move it or pay for something else. So, Alan, are you making a motion or not?
I would make a motion to restore 10,000 of the tree pest management That'll bring us up to like 28,000, which is in the range of what we've spent in the last 2 years.
Second. Restore with what? Restore 10,000?
Yes.
With what? Where does it come from?
Well, Alan's motion on the parking district, by increasing the amount of money that was used for police to pay for that in the police budget, would more than cover, double the 10,000. So that would be my.
So then we would have to revote the parking department budget. Yes, we would, because the money can't be used in the parking fund district.
No, it's not parking fund
No.
money, it's that we reduced the town budget, the budget for the parking department.
Right, so we'd have to revote the parking department budget.
Well, we already did, we
Yeah.
voted it with that
We
reduction.
did it, we reduced.
That's right.
But now we have to put it back.
No, we don't.
No,
We're
because it
saying
came from the parking benefit district fund,
into the parking
so
department.
the, fewer holiday lights or something.
Okay.
We've got a $20,000 surplus right
And
now.
it was 22,336.
Carolyn, do you have something on this?
Yes. HR and the treasurer are working with legal to determine if we can do that. And they haven't gotten back to me. And I talked to them on Thursday and they got back to me on Thursday. So I know they're talking with legal. And I didn't think a day and a half was or 2.5 days was enough time. So I'll text them tomorrow.
All right, so Rebecca.
Thank you. It sounds from what Paul was saying, though, that the DPW director has a plan to get this money from the Trees Please. And so if that's what the Trees Please money is for trees, then I would keep the budget the way that it is, and I would vote to keep it the way that it is and have them get the money from the outside tree fund.
Yeah, from the DPW director, I believe that is the plan. So again, I apologize, I missed that initially when I was discussing, but I believe that is the plan, is to get more money from the Trees Please.
Now, what is that gonna do, Phil? Is that gonna plant more trees, or is it gonna restore this line item?
For this, his intent was to increase the tree pest management, to use that money for tree pest management.
Well, if that is the case, I withdraw my motion.
Sophie.
Question regarding the Trees Please Fund. My understanding from last year was that was about $150,000 to plant trees on private land. So that means, I don't know what the rules of this fund are. Can you take it from a fund to plant trees on private land and use it for, where is this fund? What are the rules of the fund?
I think this was a donated fund.
So
that some person donated to the town of Arlington this money
So
to
the
be
don-
used.
Okay, so has legal looked at the terms of the donation and made sure that we can
We've-
use it for something
We've
other than
used
private?
this fund to plant trees on public land as well as private land.
Like it didn't make use to treat trees?
Well, apparently,
Why don't we go back and just confirm with the DPW director?
I would check with legal on the terms of the fund, because I don't know how broadly the donation was as far as.
Well, I mean, they plant trees, but they wouldn't have to use all of the 65,000 for planting trees, because they got another source of revenue, and they could shift that money down to the pest management.
If legal says it's okay.
well, what Alan is saying is that that fund would supplement tree planting on town land. And when it's in this budget to be reduced.
Right, and I know that, you say we've done that before, but I haven't seen, I still want to make sure we're actually allowed.
What?
To be sure we're actually allowed to use it on public. I mean, to me, it was clear it was donated for private land, even if we've used it on public, that doesn't mean we should have used it on public.
I'm pretty sure it was used by the town of Arlington for trees.
Any tree.
All right, So any hands over here, Carolyn, is that Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I'm assuming that we're just in this budget of natural resources, am I correct? We're not restricting ourselves to the discussion of that one line item. Since Sophie has brought up the point that these two positions, which were the field maintenance differential and the tree climber, have been unfilled for the last 5 years. And if the work has been done by outside contractors, and I note that the outside contracted services actuals have not been moving by $100,000 a year, I would recommend, I'm making a motion that we eliminate those two positions from the budget. Second.
But to clarify, it's the motor equipment operator 3, not the park maintenance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Craftsman, or differential, field maintenance.
I'm
So
sorry.
it would be motor equipment operator 3.
Yeah, okay, that big.
And 1 tree climber. Although I would add that even though the steps have been going down, I don't think, for some reason, it doesn't seem like the salary amount has been going down in the numbers, even though the steps has. It seems odd to me, so I don't know.
There's a lot of typos, I thought.
Yeah, I'm finding that this year in particular, there's a bunch of typos. So it looks like the total amount of salary set aside hasn't actually changed much, other than $1,000, even though the steps have been showing to drop from a 6 to a 3. Alan?
Doesn't the manager have a hiring freeze on?
For non-essential.
So, they might not be hiring them because there's a hiring freeze.
Right, but then they have the money.
But the money's in the budget.
Right, so,
But still hiring.
if the override passes, they'll probably fill the positions.
They haven't been filled in 5 years.
But I'm saying,
Well, there's been a vacancy every year there, but it could be a different person. In other words, like somebody said, they have a turnover because they don't pay a lot of money. So it might not be that they've had a vacancy, that position could get filled next month.
but if they've been doing the work and charging it to outside services, then you don't need the position.
The outside service has been reasonably steady.
That's my point. The work's been getting done by the outside services have not gone over budget, therefore those two positions are surplus.
I don't think you could make that assumption.
Well, how would you describe them over the
Well,
last 5 years?
like last year, the vacancy was there, but, around the time of town meeting, it could have been filled. And it could have been filled until the next time, and then they lose somebody else. And then they fill it a month later.
Shouldn't their names be showing up as on our charts
For the prior year.
as a prior year?
But if it ended vacant, if it ended the fiscal year vacant, and at the time of the Annie.
I strongly suggest that we go back to the director of DPW and ask about these two positions specifically, and then we ask about the tree pest treatment and the restrictions on the Trees Please Fund, and get that information before we vote this budget, or before we make other decisions to reduce this budget, because I think we just need more information.
Yeah, that's what I intended. We're not gonna take a vote on this budget tonight, but I want to get the questions out so that there's not this back and forth on this budget. Grant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So would it be reasonable to say, could you ask the director and say, have these ever been filled, or have they been filled for a few months or something? Just make sure that's out.
Alan Jones?
And thank you. And going back to trees, as of May, the balance of the Trees Please Fund was 375,000 plus. So you might want to check on the balance of it. Seems like it's a lot of money.
Peggy?
And the other thing to consider is, thank you, the other thing to consider is if you stop treatment on trees, then you are going to have to pay for removal of dead trees, which is often more expensive than treating, depending on the tree and the condition.
Charlie?
I made a motion.
We can vote on that motion when people have finished
I
other.
don't wanna necessarily vote on a motion, I understand that you wanna have you want the question answered, but the motion is not complete unless it's seconded.
I think it was.
Only seconded.
It was. It was.
Okay, sorry.
You're set. It was. We will vote on that, but not tonight because I think there are other questions we wanna get answered to. Sophie?
If last year we said that the trees fund was 115, this year you're saying it's 3.
From it was 375,000.
375. So we've gone from, okay.
That was in May 22nd, this year.
Okay.
I also think it gets other donations. So it started as a gift and I think it takes in, but you can check on that, but I think that's the situation. Other questions on natural resources? All right, we will not vote on this budget, but we'll have some, we'll have more discussion when Jordan and Paul and Molly have got more information. Can we do fields?
So fields, if we're looking at page 84, so budgeted 90, so I think, yeah, you'll see that in 25, we overspent. I think, quite frankly, from talking with the DPW director, this is another one that we should bring in the town manager's attention, because it seems like this is another one where DPW is still fronting the cost of all of this, and recreation pays sometimes, but it's just, it continues to be an issue. And I think we need to have some, we should get some real action on this as to what's being done about this. Is recreation splitting? Is the money going to, is DPW completely fronting it? So I think this is another one that we really need to resolve since it's.
What's supposed to happen, how much is supposed to come from recreation?
Yeah, it's supposed to have been.
Initially, it was supposed to be 50-50, but now recreation has taken up other aspects of field maintenance. Annie, I think you have information on this.
Yeah, so Rebecca and I discussed this with Natasha when we looked at her budget. We said, what happens to you if DPW can't fund field maintenance anymore? And one of the things we discovered is that they have not really revisited playing field fees, particularly for things like the soccer club and so on and so forth. And she said we would need to revisit those, which they probably ought to do anyways. So I think getting some clarity, I mean, in other words, I'm supporting Jordan's position. I think getting some clarity on this is kind of important. I know that there are things that are now part of supporting those fields that the rec department is paying for, porta potties, other things. And so it would be nice to get them and DPW to make a consolidated budget for field maintenance and say who's paying for what, and making sure that we know what the actual outgo expenses are and so on and so forth.
And if maybe raising user fees.
And definitely raising user fees. Remember that the rec department is an enterprise fund, right? If we just said, look, DPW can't afford to support this budget at this level anymore, we're cutting this, the recreation department would just have to figure out how to make it work within their budget. And I think it's reasonable to expect that. And it's reasonable to put those fees on the table. The town manager's putting other fees on the table at the moment, so that's my feeling about it.
Sophie?
So,
I have, last year, there was mention that Parks and Rec was giving 35,000 out of that 90 or something like that. Does that sound familiar or not?
I know that Parks and Rec is spending some money on
Right, okay.
field maintenance. It sounds like there's some contention about whether or not money is being moved from pot to pot to make sure the expenses are covered. But because we don't have some separate accounting for it, these are the field maintenance expenses, this is what came out of DPW's budget and this is what Rec contributed, plus the other things rec thinks they're paying for, I don't think we actually know,
Right.
okay? And then it's a big red flag to me that they haven't looked at their field user fees in some number of years.
I think I would add, it's also interesting that you mentioned last year that Parks and Recs decides on the field conditions, but then if DPW pays for the maintenance, those can be in conflict sometimes if you allow too much use, which increases the cost of the maintenance. It seems like there needs to be.
I think Park and Rec calls it if they need to close fields due to rain, due to weather, and condition of the fields. I think that's different from deciding how many days of use and how much rest the fields get, which is really based on demand.
Right.
So I think that's the conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
That DPW is told, fix it. But
Right, but then if it's overused, if they don't close it enough, sometimes there's a lot of rain and they say at user discretion.
Yeah.
For the soccer fields, and the soccer fields are always gonna go and play, and the kids come back covered in mud because they're playing in a mud pit. And then we look here and say, "Wait, fix it now."
Yeah, I think there's some discussion to be had about how is this being managed. So it might be a town manager discussion.
yeah, I think this might be a question for the town manager when he's in. Were you gonna say something, Jordan?
I agree.
Right, other questions on fields?
Well, just maybe a question to prompt if Park and Rec's gonna come in. There's nothing in their budget, it's called field maintenance in the enterprise fund budget, so it'd be nice to know, have they put money aside for that purpose?
Annie, could you find that?
I don't see anything for field maintenance in the Park and Rec budget, so it'd be nice to know that they had actually set aside some money for that, unless
Yeah,
it's
I mean, we
a
can also
different
go
name.
back to Natasha, because I know last year or 2 years ago when we asked this question, we got some accounting for what they're spending money on.
Right.
So there may be, maybe falling into general category, it doesn't say field maintenance.
It'd be nice if it was in their budget, might be.
Yeah.
So a question for them if they're coming.
But what might be in
We'll
their
go back.
budget is not field maintenance, it might be porta toilets for the fields.
But it also
Or-
might be in some generic line of contracted services or
Right.
something, that there's some field maintenance going
Yeah,
on.
I just like to see it pulled out to make sure that they actually have set aside some money. And
You
I'll-
go back to DPW, I'll go back to Natasha, we'll figure this out.
That would
Maybe
be
ask
interesting.
before, but we'll ask again.
Sounds
Other-
like a plan, Annie, thank you.
Other questions about fields? What is the will of people? Do people want to put this off to get more information, or do you want to take a vote on this budget?
So we're gonna raise $90,000 anyway. We might as well go ahead and vote it. What we're trying to do is figure out how much recreation is gonna kick in.
All right, do you have a motion, Jordan?
I'll make a motion to approve maintenance of town fields for 90,000.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of 90,000, raise your hand. Unanimous. Do you have something you can do in 7 minutes?
I've done a lot of talking about.
Sure, let's do snow and ice.
By the way, I work for a weather company and it's not for sure that
No.
that spring is here.
Yeah,
We
no.
can't get off to this.
Should be optimistic.
Remember the Mother's Day snowstorm?
We can talk about engineering.
Engineering, right.
Okay. While she's getting that, I'll tell you that we asked, you know, what were the highlights, lowlights for engineering, and this thing out here, working on the Millbrook Bridge finally.
The low light.
It was a light, I don't know whether you consider it bright or dark. But, Okay, looking at the staffing, the one staff position that's vacant is the assistant town engineer. And it has not been it's not part of the hiring freeze, they're trying to fill that. We've had some candidates or some applications, but they've not been able to find an appropriate qualified person, so but there's still out there in the department. And not having it just mainly impacts the planning they're doing for future projects here, so it delays projects getting done. Hoping that that position gets filled. So far in the current fiscal year, they're tracking well on the budget. There is not, they don't think that the cut in overtime is a small dollar amount for a value of a line item that's not high anyway. And we don't think that's going to be a significant problem. On the question of mobility improvements, the way we asked about the fact that it was only $10,000, the actuals in 2025 was $10,000, but they still budgeted $60,000 in the next 10 years. We said that part of the thing is that sometimes because of the scheduling of when this work is done in the spring, the actuals end up getting actual paid in the next fiscal year, and so that $10,000 was probably not really an accurate account of how much work they were doing on mobility improvements that year. The training and professional development, he expects that if there are issues then with the technical services, that some of that will be covered in the capital budget because of the money for the projects coming from the capital.
It's essentially consulting services, so rather than taking it out of your operating budget, it would just come out of a project budget.
So I move that engineering taxation total be $183,355.
Second. All right. Any questions, Sophie?
Just, why is the offset going down? Or is it going up?
It's based on salary expenses, so if they reduce the salary expenses.
The salaries are going up?
Well, that's why we do that.
Okay, so the offset goes.
Hey.
But on the other years,
It's
just going the opposite way than in previous years, but every year the salaries go up, right?
I would think they do, but they're based on, but maybe this year they're less because they're taking the percentages are based on last year's salaries.
They have a new town engineer this year, and we'll just check to see whether his salary is a little, it's been a little less this year than previous years.
It is less.
Town engineer.
Peggy.
Thank you. So I'm just, this is very small, but that materials supplies at 3,000. And I'm surprised it's not at least reduced by the 10% that I thought that they were required to reduce. office supplies at least. And it seems like a lot anyway, given that in 2025, the actual was less than $100.
I don't have the answer to get back to the director on that.
Charlie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Isn't there a mobility line item in the disability budget?
Disability Commission budget?
I think so, yeah.
Sophie, do you have any idea if that's true or not?
In which budget?
The
Disability Commission.
budget.
Or mobility?
Multiple tens of thousands for,
It's in the CP something. It's one of the other, it's not in the commission budget. They only get 20,000. They've only been getting about 20,000 for projects. But there was 100,000 in the other
capital planning?
capital planning. There used to be the 100,000 for disability, mobility.
Yeah, I just remember, it did get moved.
I think it used to be 100,000 and then last year they put a pause on it.
Yeah, it was in the manager's office and it got moved to facilities or DPW, but I think it is.
Is it this 60,000 mobility improvements and engineering?
They can't hold it on top of my head, sure.
And this is probably design money.
The engineering or construction needed to do the disability improvements that we get.
Any other questions on this budget? All right, there's a motion, it's been seconded. All in favor of 183,355, raise your hand. Unanimous. All right, just a brief recap of where our schedule is gonna be. Capital is coming in on Wednesday. When we're done with that, we'll go back to DPW and try to finish that up, and then we'll try to get, do most of the other budgets that are left. Next Monday, the schools are coming in. Any idea when the schools will have something for us to look at before Monday?
They meeting tomorrow.
Wednesday, there's a meeting, so I'll
Okay, and we're meeting with the town manager on the 18th. And then Monday, the 23rd, we should be in good shape to do the insurance budget and water and sewer. Right? The 23rd for your budgets?
23rd. You made the 23rd.
Insurance and water and sewer?
Yes, sorry.
We're actually discussing that.
Yeah, actually, I just changed it in the system, sorry. We're meeting the 19th.
All right, and then the 25th, we will wrap up any loose ends. And the 30th will be 2 days after the election. We have to do this all over again. So that's the schedule.
Not.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.